Okay, well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you. Thanks for getting out of bed a little bit earlier, and I know that you'll be blessed because you did, just because of the word, right? So, Pastor Michael Harding, which I think many of you were here on Wednesday night, but for those who weren't, Pastor Michael Harding and his wife Jenny are with us from Troy, Michigan, First Baptist Church of Troy, Michigan. And Pastor Harding was Allie and Nathaniel's pastor, both of them all growing up since about kindergarten. And he's pastored for 41 years at First Baptist Church of Troy. I'm going to introduce him more fully in the morning service, but I've told him that he has 30 minutes for this session. So that's all I'm going to say. And you'll have to stick around at 10 a.m. to hear a lot more about him. But he is going to be speaking on the topic of what does it mean to be human, specifically as it relates to does gender matter. And so, Pastor, I'll give you this full time, please.
All right, thank you. Our first lesson was Wednesday night on what does it mean to be human. And I actually have 3 or 4 more lessons along that line. Who are we? What is our problem, etc. And then I go into the application, and this lesson is on the application. Does our gender matter? And so I think you have notes. I hope you do. And make sure I've got mine all ready and situated here. If you need notes, yes, raise your hand. That would be fine. Gender does matter, and we hear a lot of terms today about gender norming, gender stereotyping, fluidity, female empowerment, toxic masculinity, etc. And there was a fellow named James Barner who did some interviews at the University of Washington, and he's about a 5'10" Caucasian guy, and he would ask people various questions, and he said, what if I told you I was a 7-year-old girl? What would you think? Well, that's fine for you. If that's what you think and doesn't hurt anybody, it's okay. You're a 7-year-old girl. What if I told you I should go into the first grade? Well, that's fine too. You can go into first grade. He said, what if I told you I was Chinese? I identify as Chinese. Well, if that makes you feel good, it's a little weird, but yeah, sure. Yeah, you're Chinese. What if I told you I am a 6'5" Chinese girl in the first grade? And one of the girls, this really happened, this is a real interview, and one of the students said, you're not 6'5". But as long as you don't hurt anybody, that's okay. And that's where we are in our culture. It's totally absurd. And this is being promoted by doctors, politicians, educators, all kinds of people in the media. And people today are arguing that you can be whatever you want to be as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, but it does hurt people. In creation, the primary markers of distinction really are not hair color, size, weight, skin color, personality. It's really maleness and femaleness. That is the basic fundamental distinction in humanity. And God has created us male and female to fulfill our purpose as image bearers of God. And we are to uniquely glorify God by embracing our God-given biological maleness, our God-given biological femaleness, because that is how God has created us. The current secular pagan scheme of the worldview is called expressive individualism. And it simply means this: whatever you feel trumps whatever the body says you are. Whatever you feel trumps whatever the body says you are. So the body may say you're a man, the body may say you're a girl, the body says you're a human, but whatever you feel, you might feel like a tree, you might feel like a plant, you might feel like a cat or a dog or a man or a woman or something in between. And whatever you feel trumps whatever you are. It's simply expressive individualism that is a result of cultural, pagan, secular values all fused together. And that's why in our society you'll see situations where social workers don't even call babies babies anymore. They'll call them theybies, 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 because they can't identify boys and girls. So we have Supreme Court justices, when asked in an interview, do you know the difference between a man and a woman? And they have no idea. Reminds me of Chuck Norris when he said, I'm a man trapped in a woman's body and then I was born. So think about that for a second. So we have total confusion in our day. Entire classrooms today of elementary students have actually come out trans. Entire classrooms. That's all because of gender ideology being forced on the throats of our students. This is happening in thousands and thousands of schools on both sides of the border. Government is encouraging and funding irreversible hormone therapy for young children, and they're also funding mutilation of teenagers' bodies in the most intimate way. And these things fundamentally are irreversible. They have irreversible effects on kids, and that's why the suicide rates for people who have gone through these things are sky high. It's not because they're being mistreated by society. The suicide rates are because they are doing something completely contrary to the created order, and it's causing immense difficulty for them. It's also causing confusion in churches. Christians think that the roles and responsibilities given by God assigned to men and women in the Bible are now arbitrary or even backwards. Nevertheless, God's vision of maleness, God's vision of femaleness, since he has created both, is really a revelation of several things. It's a revelation of similarity. There are similarities between men and women. Distinction, there are distinctions. Complementarity, meaning there is a fitting of men and women together, much like a plastic bottle would have a cap on it. There's a precise fitting there designed by God. And so there's a complementarity. And that's vastly different from gender fluidity and what I would call the androgynous vision. The androgynous, which means the genderless vision of humanistic secularism. So let's look first of all at men and women, that they are more similar than they are different. See, there is a danger, I think, for us Bible believers, that we could accidentally emphasize our distinctions to the exclusion of our similarities, and that would be a great danger. So there is a profound similarity between both genders in the book of Genesis. We actually have more in common than we do have in distinction. That's why you can actually say of men and women, it's mankind, because we do have more in common. Already we have learned last Wednesday about our shared humanity. So let's look at these. First of all, both genders are creatures. God created mankind in the image of God. He created them male and female. That means that the greatest distinction in the book of Genesis is not between men and women. The greatest distinction is between God and his creation. So we have the creator God, we have the creature. We are creatures made in the image of God. That makes us different from animals. But that is something we have in similar. We are both men and women, creatures created by God. And we are distinct from God. We are not God. We are like God, but we are not God. The second similarity is that both genders are made in the image of God. We call it the imago Dei, the image of God. It essentially means we reflect God on a finite level. We replicate God on a finite level. We are mirrors reflecting God to the rest of creation, but we are not God. There's still an infinite gulf between mankind and God, but we are images of God. We are all created in the image of God. That image has been marred from the fall, but it's still there. The reason we don't murder people is because man is made in the image of God. When you murder somebody, you're destroying the image of God in that person. You're killing them. And thus, by corporate man, his life should be forfeited for that kind of thing, says Genesis 9:6. So both sexes are made in the image of God. And this includes your rationality, your ability to think, your ability to make yourself the object of your own thoughts. your ability to do music, your ability to speak, to have speech, to write, to read. These are all things unique to human beings. Animals can't do any of these things. Chimpanzees cannot do these things. Dolphins cannot do these things. They operate on their instincts. Human beings do not, because we replicate God on a finite level. It's one of the greatest proofs that there is God, that humankind, there's no half humans or three-quarter humans. You're either human or you're an animal. There's no greater distinction than that, other than the distinction between God and his creatures. Third, both genders are of material and immaterial. That means men and women are material and immaterial. We have a body, we have a spirit, you call it a soul. The unification of body and spirit is a soul, a living soul, and you are both body and soul. That means, dear friend, that you and a woman or you and a man are similar. You're identical to each other. All men and all women have the material and immaterial. God created Adam from the ground. He created woman from the man. God brings the woman to the man. He says, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken from the man. No other creatures are suitable companions for each other. The woman is suitable for the man is suitable for the woman. There is no other creature suitable for men and women. No dog, no animal. You know, today we live in a crazy world where people look at their pets like their children. You can love your pet, feed your pet, walk your pet, love your pet. That's all good. I had 3 cats growing up, and they were great entertainment for me. All Siamese, I might say. And I loved my pets, but they weren't like my brother. They weren't like my mother and father. And what you'll see today, even in our society, people are exalting pets almost to human status today. And some people even call their pets their children. It just shows you how people don't recognize the true equalness and similarity of men and women when they're trying to put pets on that same kind of a level. So she is like Adam. She's an embodied soul. We have the same mental hardware, the same spiritual hardware, the same mind, will, emotion, and heart. Men and women are very, very similar. Fourth, both genders share the same purpose. We have the dominion mandate in Genesis 1:28 given to both men and women. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and rule over it. And the whole point of the creation of man was to extend the borders of Eden by their work. They were to fill the earth with human beings, and they were to fill the earth by being vice-regents, viceroys for God. They were to rule on God's behalf as a couple. They had different functions in that ruling, but they were to rule as Adam and Eve and as their posterity continued. So they're called to display God's character in the world, to expand God's rule on the earth. And by doing that, prior to the fall, they would extend the borders of Eden to the entire created world at that time. So men and women are very, very similar, and we should not de-emphasize these similarities at all. It would be perhaps misogynistic to do so, or chauvinistic in some way. Secondly, men and women are designed with complementary differences. Now, when I say complementary, I'm not talking about complement, okay? You can complement each other all you want. That's wonderful. Complementary is talking about completing one another. We'll say that men complete women, women complete men, and these differences should be embraced. They are designed to fit together. So in Genesis 2:15, Adam is created first, placed in the garden. He's given God's law. God gives him the law. You know, don't eat from this particular tree. Then God declares something is not good. All the cadences of Genesis, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is very good. And then God says, not good. Humanity was not designed to be monolithic. Humanity was not designed to be monolithic. There is a designed diversity in our similarity, and that diversity is maleness and femaleness. So both sexes have unique roles in the dominion mandate. He is given the mandate here as a unique job to work the garden, take care of it. This is specifically given to Adam. He is to have the work of cultivation and protection. Even his body is designed for this. The strength, the physical size, the muscular strength that naturally comes to the male human being. was designed for this purpose. Men and women do have differences. And so the woman is described as a suitable helper in verse 18 and verse 20 of Genesis 1. She is a suitable helper, Genesis 2, verse 18, verse 20. Yet distinct but complementary. And so we're complementarians in that regard. Adam cannot take dominion and be fruitful without the woman. It's impossible. He cannot do it by himself. He can't do it with another man. It has to be a woman. She is a suitable helper, uniquely fitted for him. Suitable is the key word here, uniquely fitted for him. Of course, this outlaws all homosexuality, all same-sex attraction, all LGBTQ kind of thinking. It is fundamentally contrary to the created order. It is a high-handed sin against God. And somebody might say, well, I have feelings. Well, we all have feelings, but we have to remember many of our desires and feelings come from our fallen nature that takes place after Genesis 3. If I did everything my feelings told me to do, I would be in prison for the rest of my life, and so would you. There'd be dead people around us. I'm not sure any of our kids would survive, okay? And I've always joked and said God gives grandkids as a reward for not killing your kids. And so, if we operated on our feelings, folks, our entire lives would be destroyed. People would tell me, well, I feel this way, I must do this. Then you're grossly immature, you're probably grossly sinful, and you're grossly selfish. And we would have total chaos, total disorder, total uncivilization in all the world when you act on your feelings. So if somebody comes to my office and says, I feel like this, I feel like that. Now people are actually saying they feel like animals these days and start acting like animals. Your feelings are not to be trusted. They're not to be trusted because those feelings come from a sinfully fallen nature. So, friends, we have to understand that we have to act according to God's design, not according to sinful feelings that you might have. So the man needs the woman needs the man to do what image bearers are called to do by God. We are to fill the earth, we are to replenish the earth, we are to beautify the earth, we are to work the earth, we are to take care of the earth. This, frankly, goes not only through the entire earth, it goes through the entire universe. This is the entire creation of God. Even space exploration is part of the dominion mandate because it's all of God's creation, and we are viceroys for God, men and women as a team to do this for God. Continuing on, Adam is also created first from the ground. The woman is created from his side and brought to the man, verse 21. And Adam is given authority at this case. And the authority to name the animals means this. He identifies animals. It's the ordering of animals, the organizing of God's creation. It wasn't just saying, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, this is your name. It was really man's responsibility to organize the created world, starting with the animals. And then in verse 23, he names his wife, Eve. Actually, he names her twice. And the idea is that Adam is given inherent authority here with his wife in this regard. So when we look at the entire picture, what we have is an asymmetrical relationship between the man and the woman as they enter into the covenant of marriage. Meaning men and women are similar, but they're not identical. They're equal, but they're not identical. They're not identical in how they're made. They're not identical in their function. So that's where the word asymmetrical comes from. Symmetrical means something that is exactly the same as the other thing. But this is an asymmetrical relationship in the marriage. So the man's role is described in terms of provision, protection. The woman's role is described in terms of nurturing, filling, and beautifying. These are intrinsic qualities that God has given to the genders. Man is also tasked with the cultivation of the garden so he can provide for others. And his provision is linked to the protection of his family. And that's his responsibility. The woman is nurturing as a suitable helper. She is inherently supportive of the man. Continuing on here, both genders also, men and women, have unique bodies. Unique bodies. In order to fill, beautify, and multiply, there is a need for distinct biological differences. Biological differences. Her body is designed for nurturing. Her body is designed for birthing children. Her skin is softer, tender, and smoother than a man's skin. So in the task of being fruitful and multiplying, the man is providing and the woman is nurturing. The seed comes from the man. The woman receives the seed and provides a home for the seed in her womb. They are uniquely qualified as man and woman in provision and nurturing. And these are natural instincts. I have 3 daughters, I have a son, and they are very unique in this way. My daughters have these nurturing instincts. My son has these providing and masculine instincts. Of course, we reinforced those when we raised our children. We didn't just turn them loose to CNN or ABC, NBC, CBS, or PBS, the 5 cesspools of America. We trained them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. We didn't let the media train them. We didn't let the secularists train them. We didn't let the godless philosopher, paganistic people train them. We trained them. And why? Because we have that responsibility. And so do you. So they are uniquely qualified in this regard. So since man is called to take dominion by working the soil, their bodies bigger and stronger, they are by design to fulfill divine's callings. Now, we're not all farmers anymore. Society has changed in that regard. But the same principles still apply. Men have this basic responsibility for provision and protection. Women have this basic responsibility for nurturing and for beautifying. And they do that. Third, both genders, man and woman, have unique spiritual responsibilities. Now, spiritually, ontologically, we're the same. The word ontology means who we are, our being, our essence. The man has the ultimate spiritual responsibility, but we're both equal in spiritual capacities. The woman is a suitable helper. She follows the spiritual leadership of a good and godly husband. She encourages his spiritual leadership. She nurtures that responsibility. In what sense did that happen early on? God gave the law to whom? He gave it to Adam directly. Adam had to share that law with his wife. He is responsible to pass it on to Eve, and men are responsible to instruct their families, including their wives, to lead them spiritually. Satan subverted that order, as you know. He subverted it by directly going to Eve. He reverses the created order in that regard. She was deceived, but Adam sinned willfully. He sinned intentionally. He was right there when Eve was being tempted. And yes, she fell to the deception of Satan, but he willfully, knowingly, intentionally, and presumptively did what he did. Thus, the sin falls upon Adam primarily. And in Romans 5, it's Adam's sin that is passed upon all men for all of sin. Why is that? Because he bore the ultimate spiritual responsibility. And I say to men, you bear the ultimate spiritual responsibility in your home. You are to teach and train your wife. You are to set the pace, set the pattern. You are to set the example. You are to be the main instructor. Now, your wife supports you in all of that, and she instructs, and she leads, and she exemplifies for the children as well. But it's husband and wife. And in the feminizing of the United States of America, which has been taking place for decades now, men have been abandoning their spiritual responsibilities. I remember when the Glenn Shunk, an evangelist, came to my church when I was a boy. My dad was a truck driver, drove for Roadway, 4 million miles. My dad was not a Christian. And Glenn Shunk told a story about he was visiting a man's home and he invited him out to the revival meeting. And the man said, I guess he was a trucker. And so my dad's really listening to the story. My dad's in the service. And the trucker says, well, my wife does this. She handles the religion in the home. And Glenn Shunk, old World War II veteran, said, your wife? This is exactly how he said it. Your wife? You big fat sissy. So my dad's sitting in there listening to this. This went over like a ham on a Jewish picnic, okay? And so my dad gets on and goes, what's that guy got against truckers? I said, Dad, he's not picking on truckers. He's talking about men who don't take spiritual leadership in the home. And that registered with me as a boy. I have a responsibility when I get married to be the spiritual leader of my home, to spiritually lead, set the example for my wife and kids, and to make sure that they get the right instruction and we have the right parameters and the right standards in the home. It's my job. And then I teach it to my wife, and she works in a supportive way. We teach it to our children, and we exemplify it. That's the distinction. It's a distinction of function. And so we have that function, but we also have these unique bodies. And these unique bodies are given to us by God for a cause and a functional cause. So we have unique spiritual responsibilities. So I would say this: embrace your bodily design as part of God's God-given calling. God made you a man, God made you a woman. Oh, there are birth defects that happen, but they're very rare, actually. Very rare. And yes, people go through sometimes gender dysphoria, and there are various causes for that. But their bodies, unless there is a serious biological breakdown at birth, which happens, there are such things as birth defects. Your body is a male body or it's a female body, and you are to embrace your bodily design as part of God's given calling. God made me a boy. God made me a girl. That's what God has made me. I must obey that calling. And this can really trick people. I have a very close missionary friend. I've supported him for years. Very successful missionary. One of the best I've ever had. And he raised his children properly. He homeschooled them. Sent them to a Christian university. And his boys did fine. His girls, when they graduated, were fine. They went over to another secular university to take some graduate school. And they got in contact with a girl. And this girl convinced one of his daughters that she was gay. And then the daughter who was gay convinced her sister that she was gay, and so the other daughter was defending her sister. Oh yeah, we're gay. And then they eventually joined an Anglican church that has 2 lesbian pastors, and that's where they are to this very day. This kind of stuff really happens. And I'm talking about one of the finest missionaries I've ever known. I mean, I would almost give my life for this man. He's that kind of a man, and his wife is a great godly woman. This is what is happening in our world and culture. It is a holy war, it is a ruthless war, and it is a war to the death. It is a war to the death, and I mean spiritual death, and sometimes even to physical death at times. So embrace your bodily design as part of your God-given calling. It is your God-given calling. And if God gives you twin girls like he gave me, take that as a God-given calling. We're going to raise them to be image bearers for God, doing the function that God has assigned to them, to be nurturers and beautifiers. Second, embrace your God-given role in your relationally appropriate ways. So in marriage, it's very clear. We have a godly husband who's a godly leader. We have a wife who's a supportive, gracious, respectful follower in that regard. In the church, the Bible's clear. We have male leadership in the church. We have a pastor. Sometimes we have plurality of pastors, we have deacons. Doesn't mean women can't function in the church. You read Romans 16, and Paul lists out many functions for women. He talks about Andronicus and Junia. Have you ever mentioned them or seen them in Romans 16:7? Paul says about Andronicus and his wife Junia, they were outstanding, or actually well known to the 12 apostles. I mean, they were like Aquila and Priscilla. You ever notice Aquila and Priscilla? Their names are usually mentioned, Priscilla and Aquila, in the Greek text in that way. Her name is mentioned first. And yet they were great servants of the Lord. They educated some in a private discipleship fashion. They helped to educate Apollos, who was mighty in the scriptures. So when you go through Romans 16, you'll see great things. You have Phoebe there, who is called a servant of the Lord. I don't think she was a deacon, but she was a servant of the Lord. So Paul uses women and exalts women, but he also says there's a limit. And the limit is that the male leadership of a church is to be male. So you have proper role functions, yes, in the church. So in society. Now, does that mean a pastor can't listen to women in his church when they have a suggestion? No. In fact, a lot of the women in my church, I've been pastoring 47 years, 41 in the same church. I was a youth pastor for 6 years. And I have many women who serve mightily in my church. They come with me with all kinds of suggestions, ideas, help, and I always listen to them because they're smart. And, they're on the front lines. They're in the nurseries. They're teaching in Sunday school, and they're doing this and that. And they also know what's going on in other women's lives. And so I listen to them, and they're very helpful. If you're a smart pastor, you'll listen and you'll listen well, listen carefully. But you still remember that your role as the pastor is to be the spiritual leader of that church. Your assistant pastors, spiritual leaders in the church. Your deacons are key servants of the church, but they're also spiritual leaders because they have all the same qualities as pastors except the ability to necessarily teach. So it tells you those two offices, pastor and deacon, are male leadership positions. So embrace your God-given role in relationally appropriate ways. And then third, lead and follow spiritually in relationally appropriate ways. And so men should never be chauvinistic in any way. Women should never be calling genuine masculinity toxic masculinity. That's an offense. That's sinful. What if we went around saying, well, that's toxic femininity? We wouldn't say that. We shouldn't say toxic masculinity either. It's an insult to the males. And the politicians who've been doing that have been losing elections lately, and they wonder, why, how come we're losing men in the elections? Well, you call manliness toxic. That's why. Duh. They spent $50 million in America trying to figure that out, and still haven't figured it out. And then next, point D, both sexes share in the same fundamental problem and judgment. Men and women, we say we share in the same fundamental judgment. And we have to remember that. Men and women, when we sin, we are both like Adam and Eve. They both got a sin nature. She experienced the fall in child birthing. Their marriage suffered. Her natural desire was to dominate her husband. His natural desire was to oppress his wife. And this was because of the fall. That's the whole idea there, that sin is crouching on the door and it wants to conquer you in Genesis 4. Well, that's the same grammatical phrase for men and women in Genesis 3, that Adam was going to be somewhat, in his sinfulness, oppressive to his wife, and she was going to be manipulative of him. But that gets reversed. In what way does it get reversed? Both sexes are redeemed the same way. We participate equally in God's salvation provision. Genesis 3:15. God says that I'm going to put enmity between you and the woman, between her seed and your seed, and Satan's seed will bruise the heel of Christ, and Christ will crush the head of Satan in the death on the cross. And then you go down to verse 23, and they slay an animal. The first animal sacrifice takes the coats of skins and clothes their body. Really a picture that Adam and Eve put their faith in the promised seed of Christ. And the skins, they already had coverings. They had leaves for coverings. But these skins were more than just clothing. They were really significant in that a death had to take place, the shedding of blood, the coats of skin to cover their nakedness. And as a result of all that, God saved both of them when they put faith in the person and promise of God. So I want to say to you, friends, this. All good theology begins in Genesis and ends in Revelation. In Genesis 1-3, we begin with a man and a woman who become husband and wife. In Revelation 21, we end with husband and wife. Here's what verse 9 says in Revelation 21. One of the seven angels came and said to John, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." So God created male and female, pointing to marriage, the mystery of marriage. And then marriage points to the mystery of Christ in the church. And the loving sacrificial husband, together with a washed, cleansed, reverential, and beautiful bride, really show us the beautiful eternal dwelling of the New Testament church of Christ with God forever. In the millennial kingdom, for sure, the 1,000-year millennial reign, where the church will be the queen of the millennial reign. It'll be the bride of Christ operating there, leading and serving with Christ. Israel will be the lead nation in that time. It will be a redeemed Israel, as Romans 9-11 teaches us, that all Israel will be saved. There will be a remnant of Israel at the end of the tribulation that is saved. They go into that kingdom. They are the lead nation. Christ rules on the throne of David, and we rule with him for 1,000 years, as Revelation clearly tells us 3 times at the end of the book of Revelation. And then that goes into the eternal state. And the eternal state is this. Come, I want to show you the bride for whom Christ died. She is beautiful, faithful, the apple of her husband's eyes. That's us. That's the church. Our gender points us in the direction of this beautiful story. Gender matters. Our gender matters. Your gender matters. And the destructive forces in our world today, some of them are political, some of them are theological, some of them are just outright paganistic. But remember this. Anyone who's done any study of Marxism will always see this. Marxism believes one fundamental tenet. What? Government is God. And for government to be God, what do you have to get rid of? The family. The family. And many of these movements we're seeing today are left-wing political movements, Marxist movements, but they're also satanic movements. Because if you can break down the family, and what better way to break down the family than destroy maleness from femaleness? Destroy marriage. Destroy wholesome sexual relationships, etc. What better way to destroy the family? And that's what this is all about, folks. If you can destroy the family, you can destroy the common grace influence of Christianity in the world. That's why Marxism hates Christianity, always has, always will. And we're seeing Marxistic teaching, which is really devilish. And it's everywhere now. It's in the media. It's in our schools, our colleges, our universities. It's in Hollywood. It's in the entertainment. And now it's in our churches. It's in our churches. And it breaks my heart. I had one student, I sent him to a really good Christian university. Great guy. He married his wife, and she was from another Christian university up in Wisconsin. They get married. Solid guy. And then I hear they left a Bible-believing church and joined a church that was in the LGBT parades and all of that. And he read a few left-wing theological books, and it's destroying them. It's destroying their relationship with God, their relationship with children, their relationship with the family. I just can't tell you how hard we have to fight against this. This is a spiritual battle for the heart and soul, not only of our communities, our nations, our country. It's for the heart and soul of our churches, and it's for the heart and soul of our families. And I'll just put it personally to you. It's for your heart and soul. It is for your heart and soul. So how do we treat people who have fallen prey? You know, when I see people who are in this condition, and I do, I have several come to my church on different occasions. I was very kind to them, very gracious to them. I served free dinner to them and invited them to come to our classes. Very kind. Because you know what? In most cases, they're not the promoters of this ideology. They're really the victims of this ideology. They're the victims of this ideology. Just one man who came to my church, and I just looked at him. I could tell this man had been horrifically abused. In every way a man can be abused. And I looked at him and I felt so sorry for him. And so he needed kindness and graciousness. Now I wouldn't call him by the wrong pronouns because I can't lie, I can't pretend. You know, I called him who he was. He was definitely him. Then there was a bathroom in the back we had in the church that was just used by a few people. I said, you know, if you'd like, you can use this bathroom. He said, well, thank you. And he came for a few weeks. He eventually didn't come back. But I was very kind and gracious to him, and I would encourage him. My son pastors a church in Rhode Island, 1 mile from Brown University. Brown is the most liberal Ivy League school in America. It makes Harvard look like Moody Bible Institute, okay? That's how liberal it is. And so he ministers to those sisters. Half the students at Brown, half, are actually LGBTQ. They're not pro-LGBTQ. They are LGBTQ. And so my son has to minister in the midst of that, and he has many of those Brown students coming to his church. Many of them got saved in his church. Half the wrestling team, I think, got saved in his church. It is a battle for the soul of mankind. And this kind of thing is invading conservative Christian homes now. You know, we think we're going to be protected from it. Folks, you have to know and teach and lead in this regard. The church has to take a biblical stand. But at the same time, we have to show, in my opinion, great kindness to those who have been victimized by this ideology. Victimized by this ideology. Romans 1 is still in the Bible. It still means exactly what it says. And it's an ideology that's very dangerous. Well, thank you for your time. And I know I went too long, but I am done. So God bless you, and I hope the lesson will be a help to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Harding. We do have from 3 p.m. or rather 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. today at Dan and Ellie Duick's. We did change the location of that just due to sickness in our home. And their address and directions on parking is on the back table. You can snap a picture of it with your phone. But if you want to ask more questions, have more conversation with Pastor Harding or with Jenny, you can join us for a drop in there, and we'll announce that more in the morning service. Otherwise, let's close in prayer, and then you'll be dismissed until 10 a.m. Lord Father, we thank you that you have made it so clear in your word exactly why you created us and the roles for which you created us. And God, I pray that we would be submissive to your word, and that we would guard our hearts and minds, and we would test by your word any thoughts, opinions, and ideologies that we are told are true, that we might ask with Pilate what is truth, and that we might answer that between the pages of